Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Almost happy Thanksgiving next week. Seems like it comes so fast. Today I have got Sean Ochester with me with Sage Age, and we are going to be talking about reviews. I've written about article reviews a couple of times in just the last week. We're going to be talking about those articles and all things reviews and how you can use them to increase your occupancy. But first, this. Sean, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me again.
You bet. People probably already know who you are, but just in case, let's talk about who you are and who Sage Age is. I got my Sage Age wear on here today.
Yeah, thank you for branding yourself today. I've also branded myself. Sean Ochester, digital integrated EVP at Sage Age Strategies. So we are a senior living focused marketing organization that basically helps all communities get their inquiries they need to get the move-ins that they want.
Terrific. And today we're going to talk about reviews. Several years ago, probably 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 years ago, you'd go to senior living review sites, Google reviews, caring.com, some of the others, Yelp, and you'd see all these reviews, and people tend to leave negative reviews more than they do positive reviews, and they were just not answered. And so people would have these really low star ratings, and that seems to mostly have gotten that. Is that your sense?
Yeah, I think back in the day, at least when I started in digital marketing, reviews were just that thing that people went to go complain about somebody, and nobody, as you stated, ever responded. That has definitely changed, though. We actually want to respond to negative and positive reviews moving forward, just because it's that cordialness. And also, if it's a negative review, 100%, we want to respond to see if we can turn that conversation around a little bit. And at times I have seen negative reviews that have had a response to them actually be taken down. But reviews are definitely important for all channels of marketing.
Cool. So has sort of doing reviews. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the two a couple of things that I'm seeing that I'm really interested in. You can check these out on our website. I think one was today and one was last week where I talked about it. And I'm going to talk about the current one first. It feels like one of the things that I see is that when I see people responding to negative reviews, it looks like they were either AI generated or they were pulled from a list of pick one of these to put on there, and they don't seem very authentic to me. Talk to me about this?
Yeah, I probably can't speak to like all clients, but I know at Sage Age, the responses are going to be authentic. So we want to address whatever it is that negative review is about to make sure that we're answering the questions or can speak to that person specifically about whatever happened at the community. But it should be an authentic review. It shouldn't just be a canned response that somebody's pulling out of a spreadsheet to go place in there. It really should somewhat address what the individual is talking about to basically help to turn around the situation. I can't speak to specifically why companies out there or why communities out there end up using canned responses, but I would definitely lean more towards doing more of a response that fits the need of that negative review that you just saw.
So are there ways, I guess, let's maybe actually, are bad reviews a bad thing? I want to actually start with this question because I think this is actually a really interesting question.
I think bad reviews are a bad thing because we'll do it this way. So you have the bad review of just a star rating. So if traditionally you get 5 stars and somebody dinged you with a 1 star, that can then bring the rest of the rest of your review counts down. At the same time, we have people that put like a 1-star review and then put an example of what they had an issue with. In both instances, though, we should be responding to the 1-star review and or the other review to make sure that we can at least help to address any issue that that person was having. Whether they respond again to you or not, it's just something that we need to basically do. The issue with the 1-star reviews is, again, if you get too many 1-star reviews, your 5-star rating or your 4.5-star rating is going to start to diminish. And at the same time, the algorithms from, say, Google, Facebook, and all of those are going to start to push those reviews higher to the top. And also, when you go to then Google My Business or those platforms, you're going to end up seeing basically a bunch of negative reviews first, because it's just the way the algorithm works. So that's the reason why a response is important, just so that way you're basically responding to that individual that had a negative issue. And at the same time, we also then have to talk about addressing how to get more positive reviews, so we can then kind of, what I say, bury that negative review to go down the list.
So I want to get to how you get positive reviews in a minute.
Yeah.
But before that, one of the sort of the things occasionally, and I don't know that I've ever really seen this in a senior living. Once in a while, I'll see it in a building that has maybe 1 or 2 reviews.
Yep.
But I sort of, if I see a company that has like only 5 stars or a 4, something like that, I find myself fairly suspicious that they just got a bunch of people to put reviews in, and I don't trust that. Any thoughts on, is that a problem in senior living, do you think, at all?
I have not seen that in senior living. Well, I do know certain communities, and we make the recommendation to also get employees to leave reviews on, because it helps out with other individuals that are searching for careers at that community. So, but I understand what you're talking about. I've seen businesses outside of senior living where it seems like it's a bunch of 5-star reviews with the same comment modified over and over again. It's most likely friends or loved ones or business associates doing that. But I don't necessarily run into that in senior living. Usually all those reviews are authentic, whether it's an associate, it's a loved one, or actually the resident themselves leaving them.
So I have let me see, I'm trying to do this because I don't have necessarily permission to do this. But I have somebody I know who's taken a new position in a senior living community, and they're seeing a bunch of really negative stuff being said about the community. And they're like 98% sure it's a disgruntled employee who's behind all of that. If you get into one of these situations, what do you do about that?
So you can flag it. So what's nice about some of the platforms that are out there is if you believe it's an associate or somebody that has their own agenda, you can flag it for multiple different reasons. Basically, sexual explicit comes to mind, hate speech, illegal or promoting illegal activities, and then information that contains personal confidential information. Employees that have left or might be disgruntled kind of fall into those categories. So we can basically flag that review to have that platform, whether it's Facebook, Google, Yelp, all of them, basically take a look at it to see if we can get it removed. And usually if it is an associate and it looks like an associate that's leaving a negative review, I've come to realize that Google will most likely take it down, or same with Facebook. It's the reviews that potentially only have like a 1 star, but with no commenting. Those are the more difficult ones to actually get removed. Then usually those are the ones I hate to say this, you have to like bury with more positive reviews.
Okay, so let's talk about, how do you get positive reviews?
So how we go about getting positive reviews is a couple different ways. So at Sage Age, we use a platform that basically can garner positive reviews for that specific senior living community, meaning that we can load it with email addresses, contact information, and basically hit up current residences and things like that and ask them for reviews, or loved ones. At the same time, Sage Age, we help to promote reviews as well on those platforms, meaning Google, Facebook, and other platforms, by designing a simple document that kind of walks the prospect or walks the loved one or the resident through the steps to leave the review. In those, what I call cheat sheets, you easily have like QR codes that you can just snap it from your phone and then basically go to that location for Google and leave that review real simply, or same with Facebook and things like that. And so they're just simple little tools that Sage Aid creates for the community to go and garner those additional reviews. And at the same time, we can email that out as well. So we can email it out to the current residents, your current prospect list that maybe just toured to get their experience at the community. If you're in a big career push right now as well, you can also send that out to recent candidates and things like that to find out how basically that process was from coming in and starting a new job at the community as well.
So one of the areas that I don't, and maybe it's because there's sort of not an agency behind it. And maybe it does. I don't know whether it has much impact, if any, on senior living, but I did think on the employment side, it has a big impact. Do you have thoughts about Glassdoor and Indeed ratings? Because I see communities out there, organizations that I think are pretty good organizations that have like low threes, and it just kind of hurts my heart.
Yeah, I will say candidates that are looking for employment will be on those platforms and LinkedIn looking at different comments and different reviews. So those platforms should also be addressed when you're monitoring for reviews and things like that to make sure that you're addressing any of those negative comments. Most of what I find on like Glassdoor is usually current associates, and the complaints or what you see on there is potentially a complaint. Is anything dealing with maybe work hours, possibly salary and things like that. And that goes back to commenting in leaving additional comments from basically the person that's managing it all to make sure that we're turning that conversation around. So they want to respond to all those as well and basically ask that associate, because everything's anonymous, but ask that associate to come in and talk to whomever's in charge of HR to see if they can turn that conversation around and potentially even remove that review.
Right. I think that's a great idea. One of the other things I want to talk about for a minute is that over the last few weeks, and I kind of got started on this when we did our last Marketing Monday while we were in Las Vegas together. I kind of got into this review mindset, and it came from our conversation, and it came from the conversation, the panel that Jameson Gosselin moderated on the last day, where these families talked about how important the reviews were in making their selection decision. But I spent a lot of time looking at reviews. And one of the things that I found personally really annoying, so I don't know whether this is annoying to anybody else. Maybe I've got this completely wrong. So I'd love to have your thoughts on it. But one of the things I found completely annoying was positive reviews, 5-star positive review, and the community coming in and again putting this thank you for saying this. And I just felt like it was distracting. And that once you put a review up, it's not like people are typically going back and checking for responses. So your thoughts on that? You might think I'm all wet about it.
Actually, I mean, I take your feedback as is good information to know. Best practices for reviews on all platforms basically state that you should respond to the review. I mean, it's going to basically give that community a chance to show that customer that they hear them, that they understand what they're saying, and they want to thank them for leaving that positive review, or whether that's positive reviews from an adult child because their loved one or their mother or father is still now there. It's just to thank them for leaving that review. So personally speaking, I like when we respond, because it's nice to see that the community cares. But again, that response has to be authentic. It's not the idea that you should just grab something off the shelf and make it non-authentic and just canned response. It should address the thank you of whatever that person just put in there. And that's at least my approach to it. Is it's better to leave a response or a response to that review than not to have one.
Yeah. So I want to
because at the same time, I will add this little component. At the same time, that community wants to show that they're trusted. And I think that thank you response helps to build their trust, that they believe that everything that those individuals are saying, whether positive or negative, it just builds the trust of that new consumer that's going to be coming over to the community to find out more information.
Okay, so I want to actually talk to you a little bit about this negative review that you and I were talking about offline. So
Yep.
here's the review that some consumer left. I feel as though my mother's care was very low budget. The food was horrible. Most of the time it looked like ground up dog food. Many times we had to bring in food to my mother so that she could have something to eat. The nursing staff were the pits. The CNAs would stand back and watch us clean and care for our mother. I would never recommend this facility to anyone's ailing parent. Pretty harsh, right?
That is very harsh.
That is really a tough, harsh. And I happen to know this community. I know it's a good community. And so this is, that makes it, there's some buildings probably could deserve that, right? That was really, really hard.
Did the community leave a response to that? Did they respond?
Yeah. So let me give you what the community did. I'm going to tell you, I did do some modification of these because I didn't want to make the community look bad. So here's the response. And it was the response actually that stopped me in track. Sue, we respectfully disagree with how you characterize your aunt's stay at Happy Acres. Specifically, the care and treatment she received here as a top-rated community by CMS. We demand the highest quality of services for those residents and families we serve. Your claims are serious, and we need to maintain your mother's privacy. We'd be happy to address your concerns directly. And it was really sort of such a direct, hard hit of you are just wrong.
Yeah. I like the ending of that review to basically have the ask to have an additional conversation.
Yep.
I'm with you where I think the first part of that is a little bit hard hitting. I know a community, they want to defend themselves, but this is where like a good copywriter or PR person can probably come up with a better response, but it needs to be a little bit softer. Again, it needs to address the information that individual left in the review, but at the same time, my approach should be a little bit softer so it's not as harsh.
Yeah, and I for me, the thing that really hit home is there was somebody the person who wrote the original review was somebody who had a bad impression about the community, right? They were hurting, and you don't know what happened. They might have, their spouse might have told them handed them divorce papers before they ran into the community, and so it was really triggered by something else. Or they just had a fender bender, or they lost their job, and so they were all set to be negative. But regardless of that, there was somebody who was, the person who wrote it from a place of profound hurt.
Right.
And there seemed to be sort of no sympathy for that.
Right.
And I actually had somebody, after I wrote about it, had somebody send me an email and say, he basically agreed with my assessment. And his additional thought was, which I really liked a lot, was it felt like the person who responded read that thing, was angry, and just sat down and typed out a response in the moment, a very defensive response. So how would you approach that?
So at Sage Age, our team, when we see a negative or a positive review, the team does write a response, and it's a heartfelt response. It is, again, it's a response that's not going to basically garner additional negativity. It wants to somehow turn that conversation to more positive. And from that standpoint, after they write it, we actually share it with the community first to say, hey, here's how we would respond to this review that we now just see as a negative. And then from there, the community can give us their feedback on anything they want us to change. But that's basically the objective, is to turn that negative review into somewhat of a positive next step. And that's, I think, where the good copywriters come in, because you don't want somebody going into a review and thinking, just as you stated, that basically hard hitting, I'm offended by this, and let me just start throwing everything negative at it, just like that original negative review. I think that's the wrong way to do it. It needs to be more heartfelt. It needs to be more sympathetic to what that person was going through. In addition to what I just stated, I mean, what's nice about some of the reviews is you can at times figure out who that reviewer is or where they are from a family standpoint, because that sounds like a family individual left that review. So the community could have also, in addition to leaving a more sympathetic review, picked up the phone and tried to call that family member and have a one-to-one conversation with them to see if they can turn around the conversation as well. Because that's also an opportunity that you can do offline.
Yeah, I would be willing to bet that when they responded to that, they knew exactly who it was that wrote that. You know, the tone of voice, and the things like the dog food. I'll bet they had said that to the leadership in the community. So I'm sure that it was very, very specific.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, because what I've seen happen before, Steve, is one person leaves a negative review, and then you come in with a hard-hitting, non-sympathetic type of response, and next thing you know, you have additional family members leaving more negative reviews, and now you just created this one after another of negativity, where again, while all you had to do is give a sympathetic, heartfelt response to it, and you could have probably easily dispersed that and having a conversation with them. And that's the reason why I think, or I feel, that that type of response is much better than the hard-hitting ones. It's just, you don't know what that person is going through. It's like with any online communication channel. Tone is very difficult to know, and so therefore go into that response with sympathy, with heartfeltness, and things like that, because you don't know the individual, what they're going through on the other side.
Yeah, I get that it's really, really hard, but I found myself thinking that if you could have somehow, and there are, of course, legal implications that you don't want to put yourself into a box, but to be able to go in and say, boy, I guess we really blew that one. I'd sure like to get to the deep, would leave a place to start a conversation, right? And I recognize you can't just go say I blew it, because that could come back to haunt you legally. And so those things that makes it really difficult.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that you don't want to basically make it into more of an issue than what it was.
So, one of the things that I've only seen very occasionally, and I'd love to have your thoughts on this, is what do you think about putting reviews, positive ones, on your website as a way to market your community?
We do it all at Sage Age. We do it for communities all the time. And there's different places that we place the review or the comments. So sometimes, depending on, let's just say it's a page about independent living, we'll try to find a review that talks about independent living for that one specific community and place it on that page. In addition to that, we've created kind of hidden pages on a website where it might be a list of different types of reviews that have come through. What Sage Age or the community can do in those instances is use that page in email responses, or even as examples when they're trying to get additional reviews to go look at and things like that as well. But no, I feel that reviews on a website are very, very important. I just want to make sure that the reviews that are being left are relevant, meaning that they meet the page that they're on. So for instance, you don't want to leave, for instance, have a dining review on the menu in the food that's being basically served, possibly on, say, the About Us page of a website. Instead, I would put that on the dining page of a website. Right. Or if you have an independent living page, you want an independent living page type of a review on that page, and so on and so forth for a care type.
So when I was at Leading Age last week, their industry people will know this, but there are some proposed rules about staffing minimums for nursing homes. Yeah. And so Leading Age is doing a big push to get people to provide comments to CMS. And so what they did is they had a QR code, and that would take you to a Leading Age page to do the comment, and then they would then send it on to CMS. Okay. But it had pre-filled language in, but you could also rewrite your own. And in one day, I think the Monday of Leading Age was, I think, the last day to do this, and they got something like 900, 700, somewhere between 700 and 900 additional comments through that portal. Could that be done in senior living? I mean, could you just walk through your building and ask them to do that?
It potentially could be done. I'm trying to think. So the downside with like Google and Facebook reviews is it has to be a unique person that's leaving that review. So we wouldn't be able to say, hey, give that reviewer some sample language to go and fill in, because it won't work that way. But I make a bet on that cheat sheet, or as I mentioned earlier, is like a document that we've helped communities use. We could put example reviews for people to kind of reference if they wanted to. But specifically for like Google and Facebook, I don't know of a way off the top of my head to do what you just described, where it's somewhat filled in. Because the other issue is if we send it to somebody, so let's just say the community is out there and they want to garner a bunch of reviews. If they send all those reviews to, say, Sage Age, Google won't necessarily, or Facebook, or any of those channels won't necessarily allow me per se to leave a review over and over and over again, because I'm the same IP address. So it's going to consistently show my name instead of who that person is that specifically wanted to leave that review. But I think that's where that cheat sheet that I mentioned could come in handy, where it could give some referral recommended languages that somebody could use if they wanted to.
Yeah, and I know that AccuShield with their sign-in kiosk has some sort of a way to leave.
They have a way around that. Yeah.
I
don't know how that technology specifically works, but I do know that those little kiosks do have a way around that.
Yeah, and of course it's obviously a lot more complex, because you've got a number of sites that you could leave these reviews on, right? I mean, certainly. I would assume that I want to check this with you, that probably the Google reviews are the most important.
Google, I would say Google are, and then Facebook would be second. Other channels are growing in interest. So you have like Yelp, and then also you have like the third-party channels that kind of consolidate all the reviews. So they bring them all together. I know with Google My Business, they're allowing us to like start to actually link to other social media platforms. So again, having Facebook as a place to leave reviews and things like that, and linked over to Google My Business, is also going to be important.
So talk to me about monitoring. Are there tools to monitor reviews, or do you do it manually, or how does that work?
So at Sage Age, we do have tools that help monitor. There's a couple out there that you can use. So one is called reputation.com. Another one is called Bird Eye. And then the last one that does it a little bit would be Sprout Social. At Sage Age, we use Bird Eye and Sprout Social for our basically to post, and also to get those reviews and things like that as well. They all, as I mentioned earlier, they all work out very nicely, especially like reputation.com and Bird Eye will help you garner additional new reviews. So you can load it with contact information and send out requests to get new reviews and things like that as well. There's usually a cap of how many you can do on a monthly basis, but it is a nice platform to allow you to do that.
So, what about timing? I mean, I'll use my own example here for a moment. If you look at, if you were to Google senior living foresight, you'd find that I think we have a 5-star rating and we have 6 reviews, which is really good.
Yeah.
Except that I think you'd find that the most recent review is like 2 years old. So by the way, anybody who's watching this, you want to go leave us a positive review, go do that. I'd like that. Thank you. But are there some rules about at what point in time a review becomes so old that it's either negative or it doesn't help you?
I have not seen the standpoint of it becoming negative, but there is going to be a return on investment from the standpoint of dated reviews. So if you go to a website and we see that, hey, you haven't had a review for, call it 24 months, it's going to probably be due time to get new reviews. I'm not saying that you need to get a new review monthly, but I would attempt to get new reviews probably more on a quarterly basis, especially senior living, to basically boost that up. This way, all the older reviews don't go stagnant, and people can still see then at times that community is still relevant, they're still doing good things, and then they also see the responses to those reviews that are being sympathetic and things like that.
Great. And then the last thing, sort of relative to the timing, I remember several years ago, I can't remember who it was, and I think it was in like an Indeed or Glassdoor website, but there was a company that decided they wanted to be in the top employers on that site. And so they went and they got, I don't know, 100 employees to flood this with, I mean, they didn't, they didn't force them, but they, in like a 3-week period of time, they got like 100 positive reviews. And then they were quite disappointed when they didn't get included in that top 100 because the company looked at that and said, well, this is just sort of salting the mine, I guess.
Yeah, so I have seen that from time to time where if you have too many reviews and they're all saying something similar, they kind of either get lumped together or they just kind of become unrelevant. And so depending on the algorithm from Google and Facebook, they either fall off or they just don't get shown that much. So that goes back to, again, having authentic reviews. And not forcing associates or forcing loved ones to leave reviews that are not authentic. Again, I think I would like to have fewer reviews, but they would be more authentic than loading everything up with a bunch of associates just because I want to get my numbers up. And I think associates, at least on the career side, can easily fill out and provide good reviews that are authentic that will help a community basically get their numbers up.
Yeah, and I find myself thinking that there almost needs to be a regular cadence of how do I, if I could get like one review a month as a senior living community or even as a platform, I'd be really ecstatic, right? Because it would look fresh, look like we're continuing to do things without looking like we're just campaigning and flooding.
Especially if it's authentic. Yeah, I would 100% agree with that.
So I guess the bottom line here is pay attention to reviews, respond to bad reviews or all reviews, depending on who you talk to.
Yes, sir.
And keep a regular cadence of adding new reviews. Anything I missed?
Nope. That's a good recap.
Great. Sean, thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, Steve.
And thank you for watching.